walk you through what it's like to be a Limey on IV with my longest IV day yet, which is 7 hours of meds. So my lovely cinematographer is going to be helping show you what I go through on a reg. All right, so come on over to the kitchen. This is the very first step. As you can see, this is just IV medication. It's very specific. It helps me to have this all like laid out. That way I don't have to rely on my memory for this stuff. Today, we are doing the 7-hour day, starting with ceftriaxone. That is the only IV medication that has to be refrigerated. So when it's delivered, it comes in a cooler. You get this little bag and you just keep it in the fridge. The trick with these though, is you cannot put them in your body until they have warmed to room temperature. So we're gonna take these out first. So I learned really quickly that it's helpful to have something like this dedicated to just the medications because you have a ton of supplies, ton of different meds. So it just makes the daily process a lot easier. Let me walk you through what all these supplies are. First, I need to make sure that everyone sees and admires my lovely, very mature for a 35-year-old woman IV pole, and it also lights up. And then I have a trash bin. This is an instructional tray that came with the medication that's delivered to me. Saline flushes. So you start every day with a saline flush. That's what this first little dude is. And then in between medications, you do a saline flush. So when I'm doing multiple medications, I'm going through about 5 of these in a day. Next are the alcohol wipes. You'll see on the tray, it says alcohol prep, alcohol prep, alcohol prep, alcohol prep. Anytime you're doing anything, you're prepping with alcohol for 15 seconds. This little dude is heparin. You end every day with a heparin flush. You go through 1 of these a day. Next we have green caps. Green caps are used at the end of the day. It's a sterile cap that you put on the end of your IV. That's what it says here. Screw a new green alcohol cover onto the end of the IV line. So I pop that here. Now we're going into the medications. This is one of the meds that I'm taking today. It's metronidazole. I do 1 of these a day, so I'm going to put this over here. This is another IV medication called fluconazole. I do 1 of these a week, and today is the day for that. Next, in this lower bin, I have a black towel, and there is this dark brown bag. This is where the doxycycline lives. You have to protect it from light. The bags will also give you an idea of like if you need to refrigerate it, if you store it at room temperature. Not only is it, I believe, the most expensive medication out of all of these, it is the most delicate. None of the other ones have to be protected like this does. I'm going through 3 a day. I pull out all 3. Close this up. Wrap these 3 in my black towel so that they are protected right up until the point that I hook them up to the IV. This is the day of my medication. 1 metronidazole, 1 fluconazole, 3 doxycycline, 2 ceftriaxone. All of them have to infuse an hour per bag, so that's why today is a 7-hour day. And then last but not least for the supplies that I use on a regular basis are the tubing. So you go through 1 of these for every medication, not for every bag. So what that means is, and I'll walk you through it when it's time to switch it out, but you use the same tubing for both medications, and then when you switch to another one, then you use another tubing. So then metronidazole will need a tubing, and fluconazole will need tubing. So I've got my 4 tubing packages out. This is something I'll put in my Lyme survival guide post, but this is how I shower with the PICC line. There are a lot of different ways that you can protect your PICC line, and my nurse suggested that I just get some fun tattoo sleeves to make it fun, and I love that, so that's what I do. I have to do a urine test every week when the nurse comes to change the dressing and take my blood. Next, these are just the supplies that the nurse uses when she comes. I like to have it all organized for her. This is in case you are having an allergic reaction, you need your EpiPen. She's got like different tubing, the vials that she uses to take my blood. These are the dressing changes, and that's done by a nurse. You don't do that yourself. This is where the nurse puts all of the used needles when she takes my blood. And this is basically where I stay while I'm doing the infusion. So I'm going to get started with the first one. The first one I'm doing is metronidazole. I'll show you what they look like. I open the package. You pull this off. This one's particularly annoying to pull off. I toss this into my medical waste bag. Open the tubing. Now you see on all the tubing it has this really bright message that says prime to remove air before use. So I'm going to show you what the priming process looks like. Now I've only been doing this for 2 months and already I've experienced like 3 different types of tubing. They all have the same basic concept. This is what tubing looks like when it comes out of the bag. It has a little cap. It's empty, there's only air in here. Then you have this end that has a screw on it. This unscrews and it goes into your PICC line. This dial is how you tell the tubing how fast you need it to drip into your system, but it's always by default on open. And then you have this clamp. I like to move this up to the top and I close it. So when this is clamped, that means that this section is completely closed off from the rest. I take this little plastic cover off, throw that into the waste bag, and then this goes right inside. And usually you have to like twist it a little bit and push to get it all the way in. This is what they call priming. So you squeeze this section that's closed off. It causes a little suction action, so some of the liquid from the medication gets inside here. You always want to start with some medication in this tube. I'm going to hang this. And now I'm ready to complete the rest of the air priming. So what this whole prime thing is doing is making sure you don't kill yourself with air bubbles. But it's not as scary as it was when I first did this. It's not as scary as it seems. The dial is still set to open. And that means that once I unlock this, all of the liquid is going to start rushing to the tip. And I want to get that liquid as close to the end as possible. I'm going to undo this. You're going to quickly see the liquid going down. So you see right there, it's traveling. And then I put my hand on the little clamp and I close it. So now this is full of liquid. Now you'll see though, there are like little pockets of air. That's okay, that stuff's not gonna hurt you. This is officially primed and ready to go. First I hang it. This reminds me I only hang it when it's primed so I can trust in my brain that I've primed it. But next, I wanna make sure that I got the dial right. This is a 100 milliliter bag and I need to go through this in an hour. So the dial is 100 milliliters an hour. So I'm gonna take this and move it down to 100. Now that my tubing's all primed and ready for me, I'm going to take my sleeve down and I'll show you, this is what a PICC line looks like. This tube is going into a little hole in my arm and it goes all the way over to my heart. And so the medication that I'm infusing is literally going straight into my heart and my bloodstream. I'm gonna undo the screw, toss this in the trash. Then the very first step, according to this fancy tray, is alcohol prep. You need to make sure that you are also keeping your alcohol pad as sterile as possible by only grabbing a tiny corner of it, making sure it doesn't touch anything else. I fold it over and then you're gonna scrub this for 15 seconds. So now we're gonna do our very first flush. So you open this up, and this is saline. However, it smells and tastes like rubbing alcohol, almost like I consumed it, which is strange because you don't. You put this in your PICC line. You want to connect it like a dart, which helps keep the air bubble away. Because you see now the air bubble is on the top. And then you turn it over. So now the big air bubble is up top. And then I'm going to unhook this so that now my PICC line is open. And I'm gonna push this down. You actually do it in hard, fast spurts. And that is to help clear off any biofilm or anything that may have settled on the end of the tube in the heart. That stuff happens naturally. And when you shove the liquid through a couple times, it just kind of helps to push it off of the tip of the line, if it is there. I usually go down like 3 at a time. So I go like 10 to 7, 7 to 4. And then you go down to 2, but you don't go all the way down to 0. So I take the little black part, goes down to 2, got a little bit left, I'm all good. So now I've officially flushed, and yep, I taste it. Toss that, dude. Okay, so now we're gonna do our second alcohol prep. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now that I know this is good to go, I still double check to make sure that I didn't forget anything. I close this again, unscrew the top of cap of the IV, screw that together. Then I go through and I just make sure that I remember to set the dial, and I did. Then I make sure that there's liquid in the tube, there is. I unhook this part, and then I go and unhook this finally. And now if you look over here, you will see there's now liquid dripping. So that means it's working. I like to wrap this around my arm a couple times, and then I take my sleeve and I put it just very lightly over the tubing. I do this so that, one, I'm very clumsy and I have a very silly dog, little dog who likes to crawl all over me. So if anything yanks on this, I like to kind of protect myself in that way. And it doesn't kink it, or it doesn't stop the medication from flowing. So now I sit back and I say, Alexa, set a timer for 1 hour.
1 hour, starting now.
Okay, see you in an hour. Alexa, stop timer. As you can see, this has completely emptied out and there's still a little bit left in the tube. That's okay, even though it seems like that's a lot of real estate of medication I'm not taking in. It's actually a very small amount, so I don't have to like wait till it all completely drips. So now I'm gonna close this off. But now I'm not going to disconnect this until I have my second medication ready to go. We're gonna go to second medication, which is fluconazole. This is similar to metronidazole, which is the first medication I just did. I just do one of these bags. And I'm going to prep this the exact same way that I prepped the first one. Clamp it, take off the cap, twist this into the hole, squeeze. I put this on here. This is set to open. So now I need to make sure that I have the medication go all the way to the top. Watch and clear. Okay, so now I know the medication is at the end of this. So now I'm going to drape that over. Set the dial to 100. Okay, so now I'm ready to disconnect. So I'm going to disconnect, toss out the old tubing, all of this gets thrown away. Then I'm going to open up the alcohol pad, and then I scrub for 15 seconds. Flush with saline, because you always have to flush in between new medications. So I'm gonna unscrew this. The air bubbles up top, turn it upside down, unclamp my tube, flush it quick and hard, and then down to number 2. Scrub again. Okay, so now I'm ready to connect to my second medication. I like to clamp this, make sure that's clamped, unscrew the tip of the tubing, connect it horizontally, double check everything. I've got liquid in the tube, dial set. I'm gonna unclamp this and I'm gonna unclamp my PICC line. And now I should see the medication starting to drip. So again, I'm gonna take this and wrap it around my arm, cover it up. Alexa, set a timer for 1 hour.
1 hour, starting now.
Okay. I have to go to the bathroom, so I'm gonna show you how clunky it is to roll around with one of these things. See you later. Okay, so my second bag is almost empty, so I'm just gonna go ahead and switch it for the new medication now, but I wanted to show you one of the kind of scary, but not that scary, but looks more scary than it is, thing that can happen. So the way that this IV pole works, it's called a gravity pole because literally it's just using gravity to push the fluids down, and that gravity maintains that momentum to go all the way into your body. But if for whatever reason that should change, like if your arm ends up being higher than the bag, you will kind of have a scary surprise of seeing blood in the line. And it's all right if that happens. All you have to do is flush with saline just like you would to switch out the meds anyway. So I'll show you what that looks like here. I'm going to disconnect. Toss this guy away. Okay. Take a flush. Turn it upside down. And then you're gonna watch the blood clear out of the line really quickly. And there it goes. And now we're gonna switch out to the third medication. Because I wanted to show you what this looks like, and it's different than how I usually handle this, where I would stay connected to the first bag until I'm ready to connect to the second bag, I'm gonna show you what you can do in the meantime if you disconnect your line and you still have some stuff to do with your tubing and prep, so that way this isn't just hanging around, flopping all over the place, rubbing on things and whatnot. You take another alcohol pad, you open it, but this time you don't take the swab out. You just stick this right inside, and because it's like aluminum foil inside, you can squeeze it on itself and it'll stay until you're ready to use it. That way you don't have to necessarily blow through green caps. Okay, so now that I did that, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on ceftriaxone. This was the medication that had to be refrigerated and needs to warm to room temperature before you can infuse with it. And this is gonna be how I show you how you handle multiple bags of the same medication in one day, because I have 2 ceftriaxone to go through today. To get the first bag going, it's the same as the other medications. Squeeze to prep. Okay. Here it comes, and close. 100. So now this is ready for me to connect to. I'm going to take off my little temporary cap. I already flushed because I wanted to clear the line of the blood, so I don't need to flush again. Connect. 100 milliliters. Prep tube. Unhook. Unhook. And look for the medication to drip down. And okay, we're ready to go. The most important part of dealing with multiple bags of the same medication is catching it before the liquid completely drains from this tube. So even though this is an hour infusion, I like to have my timer set 45 minutes so I can just keep an eye on it and be a little more careful with it. So see you soon. Hey, Quasi. Okay, my first bag of ceftriaxone is empty. I still have liquid left in the tube, and this is exactly where I need to keep it since I'm going to be using the same tube for the second bag of ceftriaxone. So just like the first, I open up the IV bag. I'm going to take the first bag off, throw it away, and then put the second bag in. And it's already primed because there's already liquid in here. So now I can just go and pick up right where I left off. Alexa, set a timer for 1 hour.
1 hour, starting now.
See you in an hour. Just finished my second bag of ceftriaxone, so now we're on to the final leg. It's 3 bags of doxycycline. I'm going to clamp this closed. Clamp this. Doxy, even though doxycycline is really rough, and I hate the way it makes me feel, it's actually really fun to prep these, but it's a little strange. I get to feel like I'm a part drug addict, part milkmaid, which, you know, makes the day interesting. This is the doxycycline medicine. You have to actually mix this together. The first step is there's this little plastic piece inside that you can snap. And what that does is now that's opened this up so that the fluid can go inside here. But then here's where it gets fun. There's like a little bit of liquid already in here, but what I want to do is fill it up to like above the label. So with a series of pulling and pushing, it's now full. So what I do now is I put it up against the light because I need to make sure that all of the doxy has turned into clear liquid and doesn't have any particles. So this one's perfectly clear. So now I'm gonna flip it over, putting the mix back in the IV bag. This doxy is ready to go. And the tubing and all that is exactly the same. $100 milliliters an hour. Okay, so I'm disconnecting from the finished ceftriaxone. Throw this away. Wipe for 15 seconds. Flush the line. 2, 3. Okay, and I'm now ready to connect to the doxy. So double check, prepped, clamped, right dial, we are good to go. Because I'm doing 2 more of these bags, I'm going to do the exact same strategy I did with ceftriaxone so I can make sure that I don't miss the window. And that's it. Baby dance, baby dance. First bag of doxy is done. Now we're going to do the same thing for the second. Crack-a-lack-it. Into the bag. Pull this off. And then disconnect. Pop in the new one. Finished my second bag of doxy, but I missed it. So you can see that the tube is empty. If you go down, you see that the IV fluid is right here. So that's too much air to pump into me if I were to connect the new bag to this. So what I have to do is reprime it. I'll show you what that looks like. So I've clamped these closed. Now, I'm going to take this off, disconnect the empty bag, and connect the new one. Prime it. What's a little different about it this time is I have to run the fluids out until it's totally flush. I'm gonna change this to open, so that way it just kind of runs really quickly out. I'm gonna let this run out, watching the big gap of air go down the tube. And it feels like if this is wasting a lot of medication, but my nurse told me it's very nominal. Okay, so now we are freshly primed. So I'm gonna pop this back on. Set this back to the proper speed. Make sure everything else looks good. Unhook, unhook. Look for the drip. Okay, last bag. Finally finished my full day of infusion. I have disconnected the last bag from my PICC line. I'm gonna complete the final steps on the tray. Flush. then final alcohol prep and heparin. Now the heparin, you do the exact same as the saline flush. And then the green cap. So these are sterile. Connect it, and then I clamp this, and wrap, tuck, and cover. Thank you. Thank you.
Woo!